Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, how are we feeling tonight? The weather is finally warming up. I feel like we talk about weather way too much on this podcast, but I don't know. It just seems to be the way to open. So, how you doing, man?
It does seem the way to open, doesn't it? It looks like we'll have to vary it up here and there, but feeling good, thawing out. It's Gator boys are staying hot on the court. Gator boys are working away at practice. Spring practice has started. It is a really busy and fun time of year. Looking forward to talking about it a little bit tonight.
Yeah, they are staying hot, but right now we got a problem because we're down 10 to Mississippi State with 11:28 to play in the first half. I don't know what's going on. We got to figure that out. Hopefully, by the end of this podcast, we'll have better news on that. But yeah, so, but yeah, no, same here. Definitely getting the temperature starting to rise, which I guess is good, except it means summer's coming, which is not great. But we'll go from there. Moving along tonight, we're going to be getting into breakdown of Sumrall's mentality and the impact on the identity of Florida football that can have, will have, could have. We're going to talk about it. So with that, we'll get things going with our intro, our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda. As always, our mission, of course, to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, and recruiting data comes from on3.com. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We'll also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss observation of player personnel decisions, as well as on the field execution. All right. So agenda for tonight, pretty straightforward. Three dots. What is John's mindset and identity? The impact that will have, or he will have, on player development, and the impact on Florida's overall football identity as a whole. And then from there, we'll simply close things up and wrap up from there. Before we get into it, though, we do want to briefly discuss basketball, as we've been doing on these last couple of pods, because as mentioned, Gator boys are hot, 9 in a row. Things are cooking. Give me your thoughts, other than the current state of affairs, which is now still a 10-point game. Must be a TV timeout. So, what's going on with your thoughts on the current state of affairs in the O-Dome and outside of Gainesville? Because the road game has been hot too. What do you got?
For sure, for sure. So, first and foremost, this team has caught its stride at the right time. When we look at this team from last October to December compared to where they are now, January to March, night and day, absolute night and day. So that's first thing. Second thing, I love. So to say that we throttled Arkansas is an understatement, right?
Yeah.
I loved seeing Calipari just absolutely and utterly defeated. So this team obviously has the ability to go on some runs, get some quick buckets, stack some plays, and next thing you know, it was probably a 2-point game, a 2-possession game, a 4, 5, 6-point game, and the next thing you know, we're up by 14. But when they pushed this lead to 30, I was like, what in the world is going on? And to know that they did not take the foot off the gas pedal, loved seeing it. I love seeing Calipari over there squirm and just the reactions. And of course, Todd saying GTFOH. That was absolutely fantastic. I don't know. It was everything that you want this team to be and everything we thought this team could be, and the presence of what has happened front court, backed up by a backcourt that has clicked at the right time. It is really neat to see. We know what Duke looks like. We know what Michigan looks like. We know what Arizona looks like. And so some of these other schools out there, in the beginning of the season, I'm like, can we actually compete? The games were close. Could we actually compete? And now I feel like confidently, without orange and blue goggles, can say we can go out and compete against that top 4, top 5. And hey, guess what? We slid into the 5th spot. So there you go. So I love what's going on right now. We need to sustain it, need to keep the energy up, and they need to keep playing lights out and play for each other.
Yeah, clearly need to keep the energy up with the current score of this game. So hopefully that's not going to be an indicator. But I
Quite
get it.
impossible. Playing
Yeah,
positive.
it's a little. I hope it is that, and just a slow start here, and obviously haven't watched this game because we're recording right now, but
Yeah.
so I don't really know what's going on if Mississippi State is coming out hot, but we'll leave that one alone. So to your point, I think this Arkansas game, obviously recency bias because it's the most recent game and it was such a convincing victory, but I think there is something that really does need to be stated about that game, and that is that we talked about after the Alabama game how effective this team could be without having to lean on the three. And even though we've again shot the three better percentage wise since then, we haven't leaned into it as being a need or being something that we needed to do, right? Auburn kind of forced us into trying to make us do that, beat us by doing that, right? By making us lean into the three, and we didn't do it well. Other teams have tried to do that, sometimes to their own peril because we have shot it better. Other times they've tried to do it and we haven't fallen for the trap as much, right? Really still getting those points in the paint, really still focusing on getting up and down the floor quickly. A lot of quick scores after scores, really quick scores after scores sometimes, something that I've noticed. Really like seeing that. But I think overall, what I've enjoyed seeing about this change is we've just been more strategic. I saw it get brought up in something I was watching the other day. And, talking about the guards, especially Lee and Fland, um, you know, shooting where it makes sense to shoot, but also not shooting where it doesn't, right? Penetrating, going to the rim, driving and dishing, right? Doing things where it makes sense to do those things and not just taking the shot because it's given. If it's not, the best shot to take, right? If there's other opportunities that are given, because they're going to keep
Sure.
getting it given because the percentage would indicate that, they want them to take that shot over and over again, right? Because even if they hit a couple, percentages aren't there for those guys. And I think they've learned that. And yeah, they might take a couple, and taking a couple is okay. We just don't need them taking a ton. Right.
Right.
And I think that's the point. And I think they're learning that. They're playing smart basketball. This whole team is playing really smart basketball from an offensive standpoint, but they're also, of course, playing excellent defensive ball. The rebounding continues to be just outstanding, though Texas did out rebound us, which was pretty shocking.
Yeah.
That game was, if we didn't get hot at the end of that game could have ended differently. The last 5 minutes shooting performance of that game was unbelievable. And if we didn't have it, I don't know if we get the W in that game because Texas was all over us on the boards. So
Yes,
regardless, it is really great to see, and it's really neat to see the team continue to find different ways to win. But to your point, to close this out, if they play even close to how they played on Saturday night, they can beat anybody or certainly play with anybody, because that was some of the best basketball I've seen at the collegiate level in a long time. It was amazing. Both sides of the floor. It was smart. It was, showed great team presence, showed great talent. It had everything you want. I mean, man, it was good. Man, it was good. It was fun to watch. It was fun to watch. So
It was.
we'll see what happens. Latest update, we are now down one. We went on a
Down
9-0
one.
run. 9-0 run. So there you go. Bordering on a kill shot. So there you go. We'll see what happens. But speaking of kill shots and killer instinct and things of that nature, let's talk about John Sumrall. All right. I'll let you get things started here. Kick us off with John's mindset and identity. And yeah, talk us through it. What do you got?
How else do you say this? So John, we did a couple, a few pods ago, number 78. You can reference that pod as far as where he comes from, his time as a player, having to medically retire, being a linebacker, things of that nature. The thing that's probably been the most apparent to me was going back and watching our past, 3, 4 coaches at the podium. Okay, when they signed, come on to be the coach at Florida. And when I look at those interviews, obviously Napier and Mullen, and before that, McElwain, I look at the tone that was set. And yeah, they all said some great things in their own unique way. But the one that I'll probably remember the most for a long time is going to be John Sumrall, just period. The guy is an absolute freak, and in a lot of different ways that we're going to get into today. My main thing after hearing him is we're going to get into it a little bit deeper, right? But the main thing is he exudes it. We know a lot of time we talked about coach speak. We've talked about saying the right things, but this guy When I see him take a highly touted recruit and that recruit comes to him and says, "Hey coach, yeah, I'm signing with you," he almost barrels the kid over in excitement, and that's not, I don't think that's fake. Everyone
No.
around him is like, the guy's a psycho, he's a freak, he's addicted to winning, his energy is contagious. Those are the things that when you keep hearing, 2 and 3 and 4 and 10 and 15 plus people say, you're like, wow, could this really be? Because this is the shot in the arm that we really need. So that's the main thing I see there. Do you want me to go into transfer portal or not yet?
So no, we'll come to that in a second. So I think
Stay there, yeah.
yeah. So I think really good point there about his energy, and we're seeing some of that already in spring practice too. He's out on the field running around with the special teams and stuff that already got a point made of it today. Which we'll talk about more in our next pod actually, but just really interesting, like you said, that energy is clearly just a part of who he is, and I think that like you said, it can be contagious. It really can, and not that that's everything, right? They're energetic coaches. There's guys that got plenty of fire. Will Muschamp's got plenty of fire, right? Doesn't mean he was a good head coach, right? So
Uh-huh.
there's you gotta be careful about that. But and I'm not saying that they're comparable either, but it is nice to see, especially right now, because a lot of comparisons were made, as we know, from the backgrounds, the winning records with Billy, right, and all those things. And man, there couldn't
Yeah.
be two more different people from a personality standpoint, regardless of what their backgrounds and their records look like, right? So it is nice to see, just in terms of getting some contrast in that regard. Having so many of those other similarities, it's nice to see some differences. So, but yeah, now moving on, I think another point that we want to make here is talking about his ability to adapt, right, and things that he can do to be flexible, right? Because that's another point of this. You can't be rigid. You have to be able um, to move things around. And to that point, I think you mentioned the transfer portal, so I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, and so here's the other thing too. What do you do, right? You're coming in from, G5 to the power, and you're coaching your team, and you don't abandon your team.
Yeah.
um and you're like, okay, we're going to the CFP. Now, again, did they have a shot of making it through the CFP? No. But guess what? He stuck by his team, but he also stuck by his commitment to be the new coach at the University of Florida. So as I look at what he did, the way that he organized himself to position himself and his new staff, I mean, he's taken Zoom calls at 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. He's doing whatever he needed to do to go on the trail, be in meetings with Tulane and Florida at the same time. As of January, February of this year, just a couple months ago, the Gators transfer portal class ranked 12th nationally, right? According to On3, 11th out of 16 SEC schools. This class, you had about 25 transfer commits, right? You had 3 4 stars, you had 22 3 stars, and this was largely focused on rebuilding after a high volume of departures. I think we talked about there being about 30 or 31, between 30 and 32 departures. When you look at what happened, what left the building, the other thing we talked about was the quality, right? On average, overall player rating, an 86 left the building, but yet we got in an 88.
Yep.
Phenomenal. What he did to focus his time, energy, and effort on the new staff and reaching out to these kids to maintain some semblance of a decent class with a full-time effort, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think also when you look at his history, he's never shied away from this since it's come about, right? Like he's been a head coach since this has been a thing, right? Since it's really been a thing in prevalence, right? Not obviously it came about a long time before, as we talked about in our last pod, but I think overall it's really become more of a tool that it can be used in the way that it has been in the last 3 4 ish years, right? So
Right.
and he's embraced that, right? He's leveraged it. He's used it in a way that I think is um uh, beneficial to build a roster without being just a mercenary who's going out there and hunting his entire team through it, right? So you're not just building your entire team every year through the portal, but you're getting what you need through it too. You're not shying away from it, right? To where you're saying, I really don't want to do. I want to do as I don't want to. I'm not going to do as little as possible, right? Like a Dabo or a Napier, quite frankly. But I'm also not going to, you know, try to build my whole team that way, right? As I already said, which there's countless examples of, and some of those have worked at times, and some of them haven't, right? So I would argue that more of them haven't than have, but
Yes.
I think the point is you still need to build through recruiting, which we can clearly see that he wants to do, but you also have to fill in through the portal. You've got to have a combination of both in the current age. I mean, I think it's clear. It's just like the NFL. You build through the draft. You fill in gaps with free agency, right? These analogies have been made consistently in the past few years. I think it's a very accurate analogy to make. That's what we're looking at, and I think John seems to really get that, and really seems to be embracing it. So I think the other thing here, when you look at adaptability and his willingness to, adapt and be bold and go out on a limb for things that are not necessarily there, is the Buster Faulkner hire. This is a big time hire. So first of all, it's a huge deal that he got this guy, one, being a defensive head coach, and two, pulling in a guy that he didn't necessarily have a ton of ties with, right? There's not a ton of coaching background ties with Buster and him. They don't like go way back, right? They have some common ground in a couple of places, but there's not like they worked together on staff a bunch in their past. They didn't. So this is a pretty big deal to be able to pull a guy in here who you're not like friends with, right? As he said. So, and I mean, this is huge. It's huge because when you look at what Buster's done and shown he can do in terms of his adaptability, right, in working to shape his offense around the talent that he has instead of just running the same things over and over again. What could I be referring to there? This is where you get into a situation where we were talking about more like what we had with Mullen, right? And Mullen critiques aside, when it came to X's and O's, the guy was great, right? The guy was fantastic. He completely shifted our offense around to shape it to Trask when he came in, right? Different player than what he had in Franks. Now, we can talk about the decision to play Franks over Trask as being questionable for sure, right? And the decision to play Emery over Richardson, right? Those things are questionable. But what he did to make the offense work around these guys when they were playing, it's above reproach, right? It was outstanding. It was excellent. Buster's the same way. He gets what needs to be done. He tailors the offense around it. His pre-snap motion actually does something with the play. There's a lot of film on this out there right now. I highly recommend that if you're even half the geek for this stuff that I am, go watch some of it on YouTube. It's absolutely really fun. It'll get you pumped for next year if you go see some of Faulkner's film, whether you're going back and watching some of the stuff in his previous years as an OC or last year at Georgia Tech. Any of it will get you pumped because you're going to see where the stuff that he's doing just makes sense. It's just logical. Like, it's not stuff that you go look on film and scratch your head, like what we've been seeing for 4 years. It's so nice. So it's really, really, really going to be neat to see what that happens. And again, the point here is be adaptable, be flexible, be willing to embrace something different and do different things and stuff that can potentially work, even if you're doing something that's not necessarily just the, I don't know, conventional mold, right? So there you go. Any thoughts on that before we go to the next?
Yeah, I like it. And I've got one little wrinkle to throw in there. Consider this. Buster talked about how well he worked with Brent Key, the head coach at Georgia Tech.
Yep.
And keep in mind, Brent Key's an offensive-minded guy, right? Regimented guy, disciplined guy, right? Got the most that he could out of Hayes King, continues to get the most out of Hayes King. But I think the interesting thing is here, Sumrall went in and said, you know what? Offensive guys. Because when in his press conference, he clearly said, we need a dynamic, explosive offense, period. What better to get it from than the number one OC in the nation? And I think you've got a really unique situation here because I feel like, my opinion, that Faulkner saw there was a little bit of a ceiling with Brett Key being an offensive-minded guy, right? And when you heard some of the things that Faulkner said about Florida, right? It was an attraction for him. Sumrall's a proven winner. What he did at Troy, short amount of time. When he went to Tulane, short amount of time. Winning is something I'm attracted to. I want to be a part of a winning program. I want to have the chance to play for national championships. That's why you coach. Florida's the place to do it. So maybe he saw some sort of a ceiling at Tech, but also right on Sumrall for pursuing him because he likes the fact that John is so defensive minded and John's going to have his fingerprints there so that Buster can focus all his time, energy, and effort into the offense to
Yeah.
do what he needs to execute there.
Yeah, no, it's nice. I like that point. I think he also might have been attracted to this wide receiver room, but we'll move on.
Fair. Fair.
All right. Talk a little philosophy and scheme here, just high level. You had a Bob Stoops comment from the press conference. I think you wanted to allude to here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the at the end of the day, the quote that I'm pulling from is in his initial press conference, that passion and enthusiasm, the fire, that's part of what attracted me here because I'm wired the same way. Okay. The standard is here, the championships, that's why I came here, right? Built for this job. I was made for this job. Winners win. I'm a winner, and we're going to win. So love that. And I love the fact he said, back in the days when Bobby Stoops was here, you know what? Would run up the score, had a top notch defense, but the ability to run up the scoreboard and have that killer instinct. And he said it, folks. I want to have a top defense in the nation. Period.
Yep.
All right. This guy and I think DJ Pickell. I'll just a sidebar here of what he said on 3 the other day. Sumrall's intense, and he's a bit of a psycho. And guess what? I kind of don't hate those things out of my head coach, right? So,
Yep.
and especially when it comes to what he said about, the squad in general. When he got here, he said, hey, there's some high character people in the building, but guess what? We knew, and I saw we had to push these boys. It got a little too casual, a little too comfortable. And I remember, you and I talked about the comment as far as, lifting with the O-line and what that meant.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think the biggest thing out of all of that, I love the winners win, I'm a winner bit, even if it is stealing from remember the Titans quote a little bit.
Sure. Sure.
But I still like it. But I think the biggest thing is the killer instinct piece, right? Bringing that up, having the guts to say that and express it, because how many times did we talk about that Napier just didn't have it? Like he didn't have it, right? He got a lead and turtled into the shell and wanted to hold on to the ball just so he didn't lose the lead instead of seeing how many more points he could put up on the board. And that's that's how you find ways to lose a game instead of figuring out like how to win it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And we're gonna allude to that later with some stats that we want to talk about too, and some other things. So with that though, let's move on to our next point here. Let's talk about impact on player development. So leadership style, first of all, he got a quote today talking about this very thing. We talk about how player driven he is. He was quoted today as effectively saying, I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't have it in front of me, but basically that this is not his team. It's the player's team. Yes. Right. So I don't know how much more player driven you can be than that. Right. So I alluded to this last pod too, and I couldn't come up with the right expression. What I was looking for is you don't want the inmates running the asylum. That was the quote I was looking for. I was really tired when we were doing this pod 2 weeks ago.
Yes, you were.
But that was the expression that I was looking for. Not too many cooks in the kitchen. But yeah, you can't have the inmates running the asylum. It is their team in terms of that. You still got to guide them though, right? But I don't think there's going to be any problem of that with John here. But I think the point is he's very inclusive. This is not an exclusive model, right? This is not the culture issues that you're going to have going back to the Mullen days where you had Grantham walking down the hall and a player calling out to him and he just opens the door and lets it shut with ignoring the kid, right? That ain't happening here, right? This is not a culture nightmare that we were dealing with previously, even though we have a much more high intensity person that we're working with.
Yes.
Clearly he is a players first mentality and has that as his mindset. So I think that's really important. I think you had something you wanted to talk about on mentorship piece of things as well.
Yeah. So B, from that excerpt earlier, I love this quote. I love it. And he was quoted saying, a good team is coach led, but a great team is player led.
There you go.
Holy cow. And
Yep.
this is what I think is tough, right? You know, we've talked about this before. There are coaches who say, this is my playbook, this is my blueprint, you're going
Yep.
to do this. There are some
Right.
coaches that say, you know what, this is my playbook, this is my blueprint, but guess what? I've got to be adaptable to my players'
Oh,
strengths.
adaptability. Interesting.
Hey, how about that? Right?
How
What a
about that?
theme. What a theme.
Yeah.
And when you look at an inclusive versus an exclusive model, I think what's crucial to see, and we saw it in the Dark Sith Lord over the years, yes, aka Nick Saban, how much he morphed, right? How much he was adaptable when you look at the various DCs he got in and offensive coordinators that he got in and playing to different types of strengths in games when it came to the players he recruited and those coaches. I love that Sumrall has a no a-holes allowed policy, right? The type of person he brings into his program, he's focused on character and no a-holes. So that's great. Performance-based retention. He's willing to move on from players who don't fit the team's required culture of toughness and accountability, regardless of the talent level. Okay? Pro approach treats college players like professionals because guess what? You're semi-pro if you're getting paid the big bucks right now, baby. And we'll talk
Yep.
about that here in a minute.
Yes.
The other thing I love the fact that is he's relational, right? So he's going to challenge you, but he's deeply interested in getting to know players on that personal level beyond football. And that's why going back to a good team is coach led, a great team is player led. He said, this is not my team. I'm going to go on to coach number of teams, right? This is not my team. This is your team. Community and family is important. And so when you look at his overall style, it's tough love. Okay. It's hard nosed. It's blue collar. It is both exclusive because here's a blueprint that I think that we can put together to win. Here's my philosophies. And in addition to that, oh, by the way, I want to come alongside. And if you have the silly desire, the sick desire to win, and if you hate losing more than you love winning, then guess what? We're going to get along just fine. And we're going to figure it out. And we're going to be in that gauntlet together. And that's probably the greatest thing that I think he brings when you look at coaches who can adapt, coaches who do adapt, and then coaches who look at that raw talent versus just going with those 4 and 5 star players. I think Sumrall has the abilities, has those traits to be able to mix both styles very well. And this should be able to serve Florida football very well.
You're getting jazzed up here. Um,
Yeah, man.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. He's rubbing off. He's
Yeah,
rubbing
no,
off,
I
right?
hear you. I hear you.
Contagious.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's got the potential, man. It's got the potential. I'm trying not to get too pie in the sky, but yeah, I hear you.
I know. Forgive me.
Yeah, I know.
I'll go
I
ahead
get
and
it. I
come down
get it.
off the cloud.
I get it. It's okay. It's okay. You're allowed to get hype as long as we know that that the season's still going to be the determining factor. But that's
Yes.
cool. So another couple things we want to point out here in terms of his just leadership or really just his impact on the players, right? On player development, particularly here. Focus on the weight room. You kind of already alluded to this earlier. Definitely got a call out of the previous regime here. And then this is a little tough because we both like Tyler. We like some of the things that we were seeing from him in terms of the numbers he was producing,
Yes.
right? Some of the sports science he was bringing in, some things of that nature. But I think I'm not going to think. I'm not going to hypothesize. I'm not going to do anything. We got from a guy who knows his stuff, both him as a coach and from his strength and conditioning coordinator, clearly that there wasn't enough getting done in that weight room at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
For whatever the cause, right? I'm not saying that everything being done was bad. There just was not enough from like a toughness, endurance, overall training, whatever standpoint that was happening. We don't know the specifics, we don't know the details, but basically it was not enough. Because if your head coach can come in and do the workout that your O-line was doing, and that's what happened, that is not getting it done.
No,
Period.
sir.
I don't care. Summerall's in shape, but he ain't a bodybuilder. Okay, let's be real. So that that's a problem if that's what's happening, and that is exactly what happened. So clearly, we needed to refocus on the weight room here. Obviously, I think we have a proven strength and conditioning coach here, which is a big deal. That is a hugely important position. All the best teams have a very good strength and conditioning coach. I did think it was always something that I questioned a bit under Napier in terms of that. I thought maybe Tyler Miles could be kind of an outsider that would be able to come in and do this. And I do think he did good things again, but clearly there were shortcomings. I mean, it just is what it is. Whether you point to the injuries, you point to the some of the lack of results in terms of certain positions, O-line. So there's just too much evidence to the contrary that there can be stuff that was going wrong and stuff that wasn't being done right. So obviously it's good to see this focus on the weight room, and I really do think that's going to make a difference. So any thoughts on that before we go to the next thing?
Just the fact that when he started with it, got a little too comfortable and casual. That's when he knew in the back of his mind, like, wow, what an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Last thing in this point on impact on player development, run us through the gauntlet, if you would.
Man, the gauntlet. High intensity, 6-station mental and physical conditioning drill implemented by Coach Witt, Rusty Witt. Builds discipline, builds toughness. It simulates the stress of a long game winning drive, right? Requires flawless execution under fatigue. You've got two players paired up going against each other. And at the end of the day, we found out that if they did not pass the gauntlet, guess what? Spring practice was going to be pushed back. Key aspects of the gauntlet: build to create adversity and accountability, period. Witt devised the gauntlet from various sources. It began with the mat room culture, right? From Tom Osborne.
One-on-one drills, baby.
Yep. Led from Nebraska, the teams in 1990. And for those of you who remember, Tom Osborne in Nebraska had a quarterback by the name of Tommy Frazier who ran over us in our first national championship appearance. He's still running. And continued with his experiences as a strength and conditioning coach at Army, where the fourth quarter warrior test was passed down from former Navy coach Paul Johnson and then current Army coach Jeff Monken, who Monken and Sumrall, very good friends. From there, Witt added his own wrinkles, including penalties that could be called during a football game. And so, again, teamwork, adversity, accountability, blue collar, in the weeds. This team went through it, and they finally passed it. Phenomenal.
Would you like to know the only two players that never lost a gauntlet workout?
Let me hear it, B.
Cornell Brown III and Kanye Clark.
Wow.
The little bit maligned transfer there out of, I believe, UCLA. Don't quote me on the UCLA part, but I believe that's correct. Was maybe a little bit questioned about that transfer, and they weren't sure if he was really going to work out because of some of his grades on PFF in terms of coverage and stuff. Didn't lose a single one of those. Not sure if that means anything, but certainly got some fight in him. And VB3, the other one, holding it down.
Well, he's going to earn that number one jersey.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's interesting too, bringing back the number one jersey stuff. I like that as well. And actually having it mean something, not just bringing it back for no reason or whoever can wear number one, we don't care. No. You only get number one if you're out there playing for it. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll have some more insight on that in the next pod, I think. So, all right. Yeah, no, love the stuff about the gauntlet. Really cool stuff. Yeah, I think it's a neat thing, and I love that it's bringing back some of that intensity, those mat drill type philosophy, and just that one-on-one competition, that accountability, right? Putting those wins up on the board, right? Stuff like that. I love it. Did
you win today? Did you win today, B, or did you lose?
That's right.
But that's the thing, right? Who else but an Army beret taking you through this type of workout to get you absolutely amped to go out and compete? Phenomenal.
That's right. All right. Moving on. Last point, impact on Florida football identity. So can John continue? Because clearly he's had it going early, right? We've seen it. But can he continue to get player buy-in? And, we don't say that lightly, right? Because at this day and age, especially with NIL, with social media, with just distractions in general, player buy-in is by far and away the toughest thing. It's probably always been the toughest thing, but it's definitely the toughest thing now to get out of your team. Getting that buy-in for your vision, your philosophy, what you want to do, and then actually not just getting the buy-in for what it is, but actually having it be a part of what they're doing, right? Not just the thought, but the action. That is what creates a great winning culture on a team, and what creates a great team if you can put it all together into execution and practice on the field, right? I believe he's gotten that so far. When you look at roster retention, when you look at recruiting class camp coming in, when you look at, you know, the all the stuff we've seen so far with the rate room, with the gauntlet, with, you know, things that you're seeing early on here, I think we've got it early. I don't think there's much question in that. Can you keep it through the offseason, into fall, into the season, and throughout, regardless of what's going on? That's the challenge, right? And then beyond too. But certainly for now, those are the goals. Really tough to do. Really tough to do. But I think there's some things we can look at from like a metric standpoint that can help us evaluate this. So let's look at that from, first off, an explosive plays standpoint. So did some research on this. We'll get back to how many we think they need per game in a minute. I'll ask you for your number. I'll give you mine. But I want to give you some stats on this first. So last year, I just did last year, first off. Overall, we evaluate this a little differently than how some of the metrics do it. Some are 10 and 15. We do 10 and 20, right? 10-yard rushes, 20-yard passes. So last year, you may be less than surprised to know we didn't do so well here. The rushing number was okay. We had 48 explosive rushing plays, 10 yards or more, averaged 4 per game. It was all right. It was very streaky, though, I will tell you. There were some games with 9 or 10 and some games with 2. So it was very up and down. It was not consistent. It just averaged out to 4 per game. Passing-wise, not so good, as you may not be surprised. 33 explosive passes over 20, 2.75 per game. So overall, that's 81 explosives by our criteria here, or 6.75 per game. Not even to a quarter. Not great. Not great. Again, we're not talking about explosives like 40-yarders. Buster Faulkner wants 2 40-yarders per game, by the way. Ooh. We only did that once all season, Texas. He's called for that. He wants 2 40-yarders per game. Yeah. We're just saying we had over 20 and over 10, right? That's it. And we couldn't even do 2 of those a quarter. Not great. So I'll ask you, how many per game do you think we should want to see, expect to see, if we see this mentality come through, if we see this adaptability come through, this versatility, right? All of these things that we've talked about. Obviously, we're talking about it on the offensive side of the ball here, but what do you think we should expect to see or want to see for next season?
Okay, so not the 40 plus, but just explosive in general, plus 10, plus 20 when it comes to
our definition. Pass. Plus 20 on the pass, plus 10 on the rush. Yes.
Yep, I like it. Plus 20 and plus 10. 3 in the first half, 3 in the second half, minimum 6.
6? We did 6.75 this year.
Did I hear you wrong? 6.75?
Yeah, 6.75 per game this year.
Didn't even feel like it, did it?
No, but it was. Again, that was the average. We didn't do that. It really didn't feel like it. But that was the average because we had bigger games. So again, you're averaging it out. I understand that in some games we didn't have that. Certainly against Miami, we didn't. But I think we had 2 the whole game.
Yeah, but that's where the law of averages kills you.
Correct.
So I'll tell you what, on that basis, 9.
All right. I'm real close. I want 10.
Okay.
Yep. I think averaging right around 10, but I'd be okay with 9 plus, right? That'd be fine. I think averaging right around there is what you should expect. More than 2 a quarter, right? Again, as the average. Now, are there going to be games where we're going to only have 6, 7, or 8? Sure, that's going to happen against good teams, right? You're not going to do this every single game. But against your first 2 opponents, we should have 14, 15 of these things, right? We should be doing it left and right, all up and down the field, with a better offense, with a more adaptable scheme, with versatility, right? With all these things, taking advantage of the personnel you have on the field.
How about that concept?
Yeah, there you go. All right, moving on. Let's talk about our other metric here, fourth quarter scoring margin.
Ooh.
We did a little history on this. Talk us through it. What do you got for your stats?
Absolutely. So I focused on the 3 years, go for 18, 19, and 20. And so just to give you a breakdown of that, in 2018, we had a fourth quarter scoring margin of plus 5.23. In 2019, we had a fourth quarter scoring margin of plus 6.54. But in 20, we had a fourth quarter scoring margin of minus 1.83. So those 3 years averaged out, we were plus 3.31 in fourth quarter scoring margin.
Which is less than I would have thought it would have been, to be honest.
Yeah.
In some of those better years offensively. However, I don't think that's bad. I think obviously it's 2020 that hurt us clearly, without question, based on the numbers you just gave there. And I know we finished that season a little weak, but I also think that sometimes this stat can be a little misleading depending on if you're already kicking a team in the teeth, right? And do you continue to pour it on? We probably should have gone back and looked at some mid-90s Spurrier numbers for this. If we really want to get what we're after here, right? Because we know Steve would have just kept running it up, right? Because that's how he played.
Make him stop us.
That's right. That's it. So that's what I would have probably need to compare this to really get what we're after here. But I think it still gives us a good basis for what we're looking for. Conversely, in 2023, I didn't do it the exact same way you did, just so you know, but in 2023 to 2025, sure. So the most recent 3 seasons, our average margin was positive, but barely. So that ain't great to start with. We had an average margin across those 3 seasons of 0.678 better than our opponents. So
678. Wow.
In the fourth quarter. Yeah. So 2/3 of a point is what we won the fourth quarter by for cumulative total 3 years. Now, our best season was pretty good, 4.85 points per game in 2024. That was mostly attributable to that great stretch that we had to finish the season there. We had several games where we really did win the fourth quarter pretty predominantly well, including the bowl game against Tulane and John Sumrall, ironically.
Right.
However, it was not indicative of what we saw the rest of the time. This year, we were negative 32 in the fourth quarter.
Check, please.
Yeah. Rough, to say the least. So, it was a bad one. So take that for what it's worth. But I think what's going to be interesting here is, as we talked about, I know what I said about the killer instinct, but if you remember, in a lot of those games down the stretch, we won those games in the fourth quarter. We were behind, right? We were not winning. Napier did not win very many blowouts.
No.
So this takes us back to those Spurrier days, maybe even some of those, maybe some of those Meyer days to a degree, but really Spurrier's who comes to mind here. Because I think Sumrall wants to see how much we can score while hopefully shutting the other team out. That feels like his goal. It's what it feels like. It's what he's conveying with his speech. So can we win 62-0 against hopefully everyone? That's what it feels like he wants to do. I know that's not realistic. I know that's not what's going to happen. But that's what it feels like he wants to do. And to that end, if you want to do that, then you're going to want to keep scoring points in the fourth quarter no matter what the score is. So to that end, I would like to see us have a 5+ point margin, to me would be successful of that mentality. This season, it would show the toughness. It would show the killer instinct coming through. So north of a 5+ points margin. Nice. Tough schedule, still not as tough, but tough. That's what I'd like to see. What are your thoughts on the fourth quarter margin?
Yeah, I like it. At the end of the day, it was interesting to see how the numbers compared to the seasons, the quarterback, the defense that we had. Of course, I just did 18, 19, and 20. But at the end of the day, I feel like to have a really good team and to go back to, the whole gauntlet and everything else like that, when you're looking at the fourth quarter warrior, when your conditioning is there, when you're clicking on all cylinders, when you finish a game strong, you're not taking your foot off the gas, you're not gassed yourself. I feel like the number I want to see is at least 4.5. So I think we're aligned there. And at the end of the day, if that can happen to a great extent to and just keep it consistent, then you're going to see, because you made a great point as far as Napier playing from behind. We the majority of the time we played from behind, did not have comfortable leads, couldn't. The only game that I really saw where it was quote unquote decided by halftime, where he felt like at the end of the third quarter, we really ran away with it, literally and figuratively, was when we played Tennessee at the Swamp, and the name that I will not mention, the running back, just basically ran all over Tennessee. That's
Yeah,
the
but I
only
mean, even
game
if you
I
remember
can
that
remember.
game, even if you remember that game, we turtled in the fourth quarter and just held on to the ball and tried to hold on to our lead. And I think we actually lost the fourth quarter in that game. I'd have to look it up, but I believe we did. So,
Right.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
It's
We get a
tough.
big lead and we just hold on to it. And by the way, just another side note on this, in some of these games where we had a positive metric, even in that 2024 season, for example,
Yeah.
we won the fourth quarter against Miami. Game was over. Won the fourth quarter against Texas A&M. Game was over.
It was over.
We won these fourth quarters, but it didn't matter because we were getting their teeth kicked in. Right.
Correct.
So it was garbage points that meant nothing. The other team had stopped caring a long time ago because the game
Yes.
was cooked. So the stat kind of got tweaked in the wrong direction in that season a bunch because we
Yes.
had a bunch of terrible losses at the beginning of the year where we won the fourth quarter, but who cares? Right. So
Yeah.
that's another point that needs to be made in this a little bit that I didn't
Correct.
bring up earlier. Sorry, continue.
No, exactly. Especially when, second string is in and garbage time, whatever. I know garbage time is a basketball term, but still. I feel
I
like,
think it's, I think it's a football term too.
okay, fair. Yeah, you said 5. I said at least 4.5.
Yep.
Time will tell, but again, the eye test. The eye test. We'll know right away the impact of the gauntlet and the impact of what it looks like in this team with that killer instinct and being able to, again, let's say you've got a lesser opponent, the game's over by midway through the third quarter, it's not relenting on that, right? To the point where, okay, we're going to give up a touchdown, we'll give up a couple of field goals. No, it's just it's scoreless, or we got them under 10 points. Let's hold them there. They're not scoring. They might get a first down or two, but no mas, no
Yeah,
mas.
this is going to be a fun thing, not just from a stat standpoint, but also
Yeah.
from a conversational standpoint here to call back to in our culture segment, right? In our Pride of the Sunshine, when we go
Yes.
through the season, it's going to be really fun to call back to this particular pod and talk about how these things are going to be, reflected in the identity, in the culture, right? Because so many of these things should shine through come the season. So definitely
Bingo.
something we'll reference back to moving forward. Before we get into close up and wrap up, and I'll get your closing thoughts here, I do want to make a note. It's 47-35 at halftime in favor of your boys.
Yes, sir.
That means they closed out the half on a 33-11 run.
Bingo.
Yeah. So we got it together. They stopped playing possum. We're good to go. Close us out. What thoughts you got here to wrap up?
I'm curious. I'm really curious to see how spring practice goes. I'm curious to see the Sumrall's reports, not just the media in general. If a fraction of the energy that I felt and that I got from researching my points on this pod is even remotely close to that which he can convey and get through and speak through and get that buy-in, this very well could be, and I might have said it earlier, the shot in the arm that Florida football needs to get back to SEC contention, to get back to national contention. And it starts with energy, it starts with purpose, it starts with accountability, and it starts with good old tough-nosed, blue-collar style work. If he can do that and get the most out of these players that he can while still being player-centric and player-driven, then what a phenomenal combination and what a phenomenal hire, because obviously we wanted a bigger name. We did not want G5, but guess what? This could be the medicine we very well needed. But as we mentioned in past pods, 2 years, we'll know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to say something here that's going to sound like I'm getting over my skis. I'm not, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
But because I think it's important and needs to be said at this point in the juncture. All the points you've made, all the enthusiasm you've had, right? It comes from somewhere. And despite the fact that we have come off the 4 seasons that we've had, really only one of them being even halfway good, and even that wasn't great. We're not in a good place from a program standpoint when you look at the win-loss record. We are in a good place when you look at the talent. We just talked about how talent is still important, but not as important, but that it does still matter. But the coaching matters more than it ever has. We're on the surface, on paper, on more than just on paper, really, because of what we've seen in words and actions and a lot of things that on film, right? On stuff that we've seen in statistics with success rate that we talked about last time and stuff like that. We've seen some really good things from this group of coaches that we have coming in here. So we've got some data to back this up, along with, the perceived nature of things in terms of the adaptability of Sumrall, Faulkner. I don't know if you can say White on that one, but certainly some of the pedigree that's there with him, I would say is good. And so when you look at that, you've got some pieces put together here that this could actually be quite a turnaround season here. Like, you could flip the script completely and go contend for an SEC title. I see potential for that to actually happen based on all the factors that are in play, data points that I have. Like, there's a realistic place for me to say, with the schedule that's there, everything else, like, that could happen. Now, having said that, do I think that's going to happen? No, I do not. I am not getting over my skis, as I said. I said it's going to sound like I am, but I'm not. I'm not predicting that. I'm not calling for that. However, versus last year, where I absolutely did not think we would do that, right? Called for 8-4, obviously got 4-8, called for 8-4. I do not think that we will do that. But at least this year I can see a path to it, where I really probably couldn't last year, if I'm being honest. Like, I didn't see it. I just didn't see it. Now, the schedule had something to do with that last year, in fairness, but I just didn't see it. I felt like 9-3 was pretty much the ceiling last year, and that wasn't going to get you to an SEC title game. This year, I don't know. I think there's a chance that it could actually happen as a ceiling, right? As a ceiling. So,
okay,
that's the thought I'll leave it with. That's the thought I'll leave it with. At least, okay. So you're saying there's a chance, right?
Yes, sir. You are.
All right. Close us out. Wrap us up. Talk to us about next pod. Let's close this thing out.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. Great energy. Good pod. Good subject. Good topic. Next regularly scheduled podcast, we're going to do one day off from a 2-week cadence. So March 18th, it is Wednesday. It is Hump Day, where we will be discussing spring camp early insights and intel. We're going to try and get as much information as we can for you. And of course, we'll try and tie it back to all the things in our mission and vision statement. But at the end of the day, we're very eager for the seeings and the hearings of what's going on in that camp, right, B?
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously we'll follow that up, the one after that, with a spring game recap for you in our standard style. So the idea is we'll give you some initial intel from spring practice, then give you our cumulative thoughts on the spring from the spring game. So kind of tying two together here is the thought process we're going with. We've already got some really good spring intel. I've got some additional intel that I haven't had in past seasons. So hoping to be able to give you some nuggets that we haven't had before. We haven't done this type of pod before with this kind of insights and intel. Hopefully give you a little more behind the scenes than we've had previously. So we'll see if we can't give you some things that maybe we haven't been able to provide previously. So that's the goal.
Awesome. And obviously, folks, we love doing this. We do this pod for therapy. We do it for the love of the game, for the love of Gator football. And so if you like it, hey, share it, put it out there, do what you do, like a thumbs up, click, share, this, that, whatever the case might be. Just know that for those of you faithful followers, listeners, we appreciate you. And
Absolutely.
Whenever you are and wherever you might be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around, Gator Nation.